A little more than 9 months after pardoning nearly 1,600 people connected to the January the 6th Capitol riot, President Trump issuing another round of pardons related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. This time for his legal team, close advisors and some so-called alternate electors.
Among those pardoned were his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, as well as Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani, both of whom led Trump's election challenges in court. All told, more than 70 people were named in the pardon document posted to social media by DOJ Attorney Ed Martin over the weekend. The White House later confirmed that the pardons were real, with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying in a statement Monday, quote, "These great Americans were persecuted and put through hell by the Biden administration for challenging an election, which is the cornerstone of democracy."
Notably, Trump left his own name off the pardon list, avoiding the issue of whether he can indeed pardon himself. But that didn't stop a flurry of criticism online for the sweeping pardons. The Bulwark publisher, Sarah Longwell, writing on X, "Anyone who helps me try to steal an election gets a pardon is perhaps the most corrupt thing to happen in American history. That quote-unquote conservatives have simply accepted this as the price of admission is the greatest moral and intellectual humiliation." And Senator Adam Schiff, who has been a target of President Trump during his second term, wrote in his own post, "First, Trump pardoned the violent insurrectionists who beat cops. Now he pardons the key instigators of January the 6th. We need to see this for what it is, an attempt to erase history so it can be repeated."
Schiff isn't alone in thinking that this is laying the groundwork for future election challenges. Liz Oyer, the DOJ's former pardon attorney, who was replaced this year by Ed Martin, told Politico, quote, "Trump is sending a message to his supporters that if you commit a crime in the name of Donald Trump, I've got your back." She continued, saying the pardon was written so broadly it could apply to countless people, and the vague wording means Martin and the DOJ will decide for themselves who receives a pardon certificate. I expect you are very upset about this.
I am
Niall.
very aggrieved. I mean, I think that Trump's whole conduct in relation to January the 6th and in his second term, as far as the pardons of people who were convicted of January the 6th crimes and now these pardons, has been pretty disgraceful. I see it as exactly what that person we quoted alluded to, an attempt to rewrite history. I think it was Adam Schiff who said that part. And of course, there is a fear about where it leads in the future. People like Giuliani and Sidney Powell were involved in propagating this myth about election fraud, and certainly in Giuliani's case, doing stuff about it, like making representations to state-level representatives, arguing that they should overturn the election. I mean, it was just a disgraceful episode in American history. I think even for Trump, even for someone who has a life dotted with so many controversies, it's by far the most indefensible thing he's done. And I think that's why he's at such pains to try to rewrite it.
It is a difficult thing to defend, so I won't attempt to make that here. I mean, there are aspects of Trumpism I find more appealing and less appealing. Certainly, his antics related to the election are not, that's not the good stuff. It was a lot that was quite wrong. I think what I would say from if I was speaking to a MAGA perspective, I would say, these people are being pardoned for being Trump's guys, for having his back, but did they really have his back? Because they gave him terrible advice. They helped convince him that there was, all these fraudulent votes, and that they had no evidence for that. They went on TV and made claims that were disproven, claims that were so false and fraudulent, they got Fox News in trouble when they made those claims on TV. They got those outlets sued for the things they said. So, did they really have Trump's best intentions in mind? Were they really doing, or were they just telling him what he wanted to hear and offering some totally fraudulent rationale that ended up getting Trump in more trouble, that got him indicted in multiple efforts? Rudy Giuliani himself, that was twice, because the first impeachment, the Ukraine thing, my reading of that was largely Rudy Giuliani luring him into a made up, concocted idea that he could offer, that he could do this quid pro quo type thing. Rudy Giuliani is not someone I really ever liked very much. I've kind of had a grudge against him ever since, I think, the 2008 Republican primaries, where he said that he accused Ron Paul of hating America or of siding with the terrorists for criticizing American foreign policy at the height of war on terror fervor. I think history has borne out that Ron Paul was right about that, and even most conservatives and most MAGA agree with Ron Paul and not Rudy Giuliani. He's a duplicitous figure. Maybe he was a heroic mayor of New York in the immediate 9/11 aftermath, but I think he is, at best, a very mixed figure, and is not someone who was deserving of this course of action, even from a pro-Trump standpoint. What did he do? He got Trump in more trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not a Giuliani fan and never was. And prior to 9/11, his record as mayor of New York was very dubious and involved all sorts of inflammatory things. In relation to the election stuff, I mean, yes, it's fair enough to say they were giving Trump bad advice. They certainly were. As you suggested when Dominion sued Fox, what you saw was the evidence of all these desperate, like Fox people behind the scenes going, are these guys going to produce any evidence? And they never, ever did. It was done, though, as you said, in response to Trump's desire to be told what he wanted to hear, and to his anger at people who didn't do that. I mean, Bill Barr, the then Attorney General, said that there's no evidence of widespread fraud, and Trump went ballistic. So that, I mean, I think it all comes back to Trump in the end. That's my basic view of it all. In other news, Marjorie Taylor Green is blasting President Trump for meeting with the president of Syria and a former Al-Qaeda leader at the White House. We'll look at Trump's response right after this.